having two persons working in Elsevier. Elsevier, as probably you know, is one of the titans in the publishing side, in the publishing world. And as the titans in Greek mythology has many hands. I mean, a titan in mythology, because he's so tall, he's so awkward, has many hands to get where he or she, because they are female titans, where he and she wants to get. So here we have two of the hands of this titan, of this Elsevier titan. We have here Anthony Newman, who some of you probably have met just in the previous workshop, and we have also here Andy Deelen. Anthony is a publisher working for Elsevier from the late 80s, and Andy also, she works in Elsevier and she handles all the publishing stuff. I mean, she handles who does the reviews, who does all the articles and all the papers. So both of them are going to tell you what is behind the curtains or in the publishing world. I really enjoy working and talking with them, and every time I talk with them, I learn so much. But the last night when we were talking about the publishing world, I learned from Anthony about the existence of some mammals, and some mammals who have not any teeth at all, who breathe, who feed, they breathing because of the skin, and the skin, there are not any teeth. The females of these mammals don't have any teeth, and they breathe the rain just by folding into the skin. And the same happens with Andy. Every time I talk with Andy, I learn about how to publish, how to handle manuscript, and how to handle with editors, other editors, and with other reviewers. So I hope that you enjoy the following seminar, and you learn as much as I do from them in this seminar.
Thank you, thank you. It's interesting. I have interesting everything, sometimes so broad it distracts me, but there you have it. Some of you were there this morning, that was talking about being an author, and one thing that was very interesting talking to Jose a year back, and I said, well, here's this, here's that, here's that. And it was, I'd forgotten how much people who aren't editors, aren't publishers, how much you don't know about publishing. Because we don't advertise it. It's behind a curtain. It's like a theatre. You see the actors, and I'm going to say, hey, look behind the curtain here. You shouldn't see. Because you know that, it helps you understand. If you understand how publishing works, it makes it easier for you as a scientist to get published, or to become an editor, reviewer, guest editor, whatever. So, and then Jose said, well, can you talk to us in our 1-hour seminar? What we're talking about? Oh, publishing. And publishing is such broad, I can talk about it for 3 days. You don't want that. So this is a few slides, and then afterwards I'm going to ask you questions like, what should publishers do better for you? Because we are your partner. We carry your luggage when you are on the road up the mountain. So therefore, we really need your input here. So there's a few slides, about 20. Afterwards, again, we'll have the PDF available. It'll be circulated. Do what you want with it. I'll do a few slides. Andy will do a few slides. It might be a bit rapid. The one you saw this morning, I have performed like a dancing monkey just over 70 times in 3 years. It's changed a bit as we go each time a few new slides, but so pretty easy to do that one. This one has never, ever, ever been done before, because I wrote it with Andy last week. For you. So if it works, we'll do it elsewhere. If not, we'll edit it and then do it elsewhere. So, publishing is everything, because that's what you told me it was going to be. And pulling back the curtain from that point of view. There's 3 bits of it. The bit of publishing as a springboard in science. What a publisher does, often you don't know what we do. We get confused as being an editor or being a printer or something. Launching and developing journals, what our job is in publishing houses. And this interesting editor-publisher relationship. And these are a few bits and pieces, so hopefully you'll find it of interest. And if I say anything you think, please ask. I don't know what questions you have. I've forgotten. I've been doing this as a publisher for 15 years. I've been in publishing 25 years. Before that, as a chemist, I didn't have much dealing with publishers, so I don't know what you don't know. So, journals. Journals actually are a regular springboard for you, because it's a way forward, it's a way, and editors, often, we as a publishing house, we try and find a good, high, strong editor to join our journal, because it helps our journal get status. And in turn, also, some editors, or some scientists, want to be editors to help them lift up. And it's the upward. So the editor helps the journal helps the editor. It's a very interesting relationship. Symbiotic, I hope, not parasitic. But and there is actually exposure, status, and enemies. If you're an editor, you make all these decisions on papers and you annoy lots of people. And so you've got to be very strong and sure of yourself as an editor, because people are going to go up to you and say, that paper of mine, it should have been accepted. At conferences, it happens. Sadly. Board members are a bit different. Board members, how do people become board members? Often they become board members because they are first a reviewer. How do they become a reviewer? They had published something, they were noticed in the right field, an editor selected them as a potential person to review a paper, they did a good review, it was marked down in ES, good review, and then they used more. At a certain point, they got lots of good reviews, often they're asked to be on the board. And many people on the board are there because it's a sort of reward system, so you're publicly known as being a referee. Referees are anonymous. But we do list the referees once a year, typically, saying thank you, referees. But the editorial board is the next level up, as it were, it's a hierarchy. Some people are added to the board not because they're active referees, but because they're high profile. I must admit, I have a few people on some of my boards, Nobel laureates. They do not review papers, but their name attracts authors to submit to us. So those are the people who are there, should we say, as VIPs. But most people on board have earned their place on there as being a referee. And people actually mention it. Here's someone's, I found that somewhere on the web last week when I was researching this. See, here's what they are, and here's what they say they are. They're actually a board member of this journal. They are board review editors. See, so here, as far as they're concerned, for them, it's part of their expertise. So they're profiling themselves. If you go look there, you'll see they're proud of the fact they're on the board. So that's just a way for them to profile themselves. It's a springboard to make themselves more known. And of course, in journals, you click on that, you actually go through to the bio. You might know this person. But there's a whole bunch of, and why isn't he in his photograph? We put him on as the 6th editor of this journal, ADB, about 3 weeks ago, and he sent his photograph in to me last week. So it'll be up probably tomorrow, next day. So again, it's a way to profile yourself as a scientist. You go to a meeting as a speaker, you go elsewhere to be seen. But also, if you're an editor, if you're a board member, you're actually, people are seeing your name. They don't just see you. How do they normally see you? They go look for you at your university? No. They might see your scientific article, that's great, and they go look at you. This is an extra way to profile yourself. I'm not saying it's sort of the way, it's an interesting, useful way. And even on your LinkedIn page, you can mention the fact that you happen to be a board member or you're a reviewer for certain journals or whatever. Can I go to that? I did, okay. It's a bit jerky, this computer. So, of course, scientists who aren't editors, obviously, publishing the best work you can is important. Your high quality original work, that's what science is all about, and that's the real way to get your exposure. All the other ways are extra ways to help. But it definitely helps as a springboard to put you into the eyes of people, either as a collaborator or similar. It's often people who are editors of journals, editors in chief of journals, are asked to go to meetings to be a speaker because it's, again, they're high profile, so they're actually attracted. It's very interesting. And of course you have this publishing reviews. Now in some countries, a review is not seen as very valuable. There's no points. In the UK, for example, currently, because of the assessment exercise, they do not give any points for reviews, only for original research, which is wrong, I think, because a review is actually a very good way for you to share your understanding of a field, because you can steer the field slightly, because you, as a review author, synthesize a whole bunch of articles. You choose the articles, and then you also can have a personal feeling of where it's going. And so you actually can shape a little bit of where people who read your article, what they think of the science of their field. And you shouldn't underestimate that, because how often are you actually asked to talk and present to 100 people at a conference? Not very often. That's your chance to influence them. A review article is the same thing. You can influence people just with your interpretation of what's important in the field and where it's going. Obviously, it has to go to a peer review, but interestingly that submitted reviews often have quite a low rejection rate because editors want to work with you to make sure the review gets published, because journals want reviews. Reviews are valuable both to improve the profile of the journal, and also it helps the citation aspect of the journal. So when we have all of those publishers have assistants, and I'm very fortunate to have Andy Deelen, and she focuses on inviting reviews and special issues and so on, which means that's one quite large area of the job I don't have to do. I don't have things to do. So I'm going to pass the baton to you, thank you, and you'll play.
Well, I'm standing here as the invited reviewer and special issue expert, and referring to what Anthony says, how important invited reviews are. I'll show you the next, this slide, which says that the average number of citations for review articles is clearly higher than the average number of citations for original articles, and they do have a great impact on our journals, and we really try to get a certain percentage of invited reviews in all our journals. So it's good for the author who writes invited reviews, and it becomes more known, etc., and it's good for us. And besides the reviews which help an author to become more known, there's also a possibility to become a guest editor for a special issue of a journal. And what a guest editor does, he selects a number of authors on a certain topic, and in fact he coordinates the whole process with the assistance of Elsevier, of me, and of the journal managers. And he's also responsible for the review process of the articles he invites. And besides that, he will write an editorial, which editorials appear to be downloaded pretty often, so that the name of the guest that becomes more known. It's good for networking, it's good for us, because as you can see here, this is the number of downloads. It shows that editorials from our special issues are pretty well downloaded, so we do have a lot of readers. To be honest, it doesn't mean per se that they are cited very well, but at least people really read those editorials, which is really important. And besides that, It's also the fact that the special issues are really well cited. I mean, they focus on a certain theme, and usually the balance of articles in special issue is more going to review articles than original papers. And of course, review articles are about a number of other articles, so you really have a broad coverage of articles in a special issue on a certain theme. So as you will see here, usually the line will slow down because the oldest an issue is, the more citations it will have, of course. But here you can see that most of the special issues stand out, and even the newest one have more citation than some of the regular issues. I refer to the first one, which seems to be not have been doing well, but this was just a special section in the regular issue. It only contains, say, 5 special articles in a full issue, meaning that it can get citations. So here you can really see that special issues are important. This helps the guest editors, and which is really very good for the journal. So in case anyone has good ideas or whatever, then you could always contact us for a proposal, and it will be considered by the editors-in-chief of the journal, and then we can work on that. Here I will tell something about the timeline of the special issue. Usually it takes quite a lot of time to get an issue together. Sometimes it may depend on the field, on how hot a topic is, or sometimes people will refuse, or usually what you need to prepare a proposal is about 1 or 2 weeks. This means that the guest editor will start thinking about suitable authors and topics for a special issue. And the proposal, after sending in a proposal, the editors will have a look at it and see, first we will check if we have anything like that in the pipeline, of course. And then the editors-in-chief will have a look at it and see, okay, it's a good topic, you can move on with that. Then you will get the process that the guest editor will get in touch with the authors he has in mind to see if they are interested to write. And that usually takes about 1 month. And after that, the authors will be writing. We usually give them 4 to 6 months to write an article. Usually it involves a lot of chasing to get in the articles. That's my job then, unfortunately, to get in the articles in time. And when we have those articles, you will have, of course, the peer review process. And also, sometimes depending on the field or how quickly reviewers agree to review the subject, it's, the review process usually is 30 days to 60 days. And then with special issues, we try, usually there is some delay, we try to publish them, of course, as soon as possible. So we don't give that much time for the revision process for special issues. It's usually 30 days. It's not bad, but sometimes it's pretty hard work for the author, I think. And the production and compilation process will take about 2.5 months roughly, and usually the whole process from idea to publication is about 14 months. It's very well, it depends on the area. You can imagine that for mathematics, for instance, which doesn't have many special issues, but the time will be longer than for life science. The whole process is small, quick, it's about 14 months. And then when the issue has appeared, you can clearly see on Science Alert on our database that the issue is guest edited, and then the name of the guest editor, of course. It will appear on our homepage, so you can clearly see special issues listed there. There will be marketing activities to promote the issue. All authors will get a free copy of the issue, the guest editor will get free copies, and we can provide leaflets for conferences. It will get a lot of exposure. And also, of course, we can provide the authors with leaflets, we can provide the guest editors with leaflets. They can distribute it anywhere they want. It just gives you extra exposure. And I think it's good for the network as well. Of course, when you invite authors for your special issue and it's accepted and it's successful, of course, you will be invited for these things as well. I think it really helps your career. And what we also we also place considering for the editorial board. But with really good relationships, with smooth processes, yeah, this can also ensure. This can also result in being a board member or being an editor. I mean, with Jose, we really had a great time with putting together this special issue, and it all worked out fine. And yeah, he's an editor now, so really good result. So yeah, it was a nice story. I mean, I'm responsible at Elsevier for the special issues and invited reviews, and just to ensure a smooth publication process. For me, it usually means harassing everyone until all material is in, and then ensuring the review process will go smoothly and these kind of things. And I also coordinate the proposals. I ensure that the editors will see them, check them in my database, do we have similar material for various journals. Maybe sometimes coordinate promotion activities when we have special issues or similar topics that we can promote them together, and also yeah, it's also done. That's my part of the story. I think we'll take on.
Thank you. How many journals do you have?
25. I have 25 journals, and about over 100 special issues in China, and about 505 reviews in China.
Not all mine. And he works more than just me. Thank you. We were talking yesterday about my perk as a publisher sometimes is to have a good idea, and then I persuade an editor it might be a good idea for a special issue. And that was this particular, it was the Comparative Biochemistry Journal, and I had a good idea in the shower one day. Oh, that'd be nice. And then I said to the editors, why don't we have a special issue and we'll have a satellite around the meeting on monotremes. That's the echidnas and the duck-billed platypus, these weird mammals. And that's interesting, yeah, we'll do that. And so my good idea in the shower became an interesting suggestion. We found someone to be the guest editor, and then we actually put a bit of money into them all getting together to have a satellite meeting. And then 18 months later, there's a special issue on monotremes published in that journal, which Anthony thought up. That to me is cool, because I've somehow also done my bit to pushing science in a certain direction, just as guest editors do. So that is the background to talking about monotremes and the fact that they are mammals, they give milk, they don't have big teeth. That's the background. The sort of thing you talk about in a car, of course. Okay. If you are a reviewer, you do get acknowledged. This, for example, is one of my journals, and we have this acknowledgement. The editors acknowledge with gratitude the assistance of the following individuals. So I'll just list them all. And that's a way for people to see their name or see other people's names. And we get thousands of downloads of this particular document every time. If you go to the Science Direct, people go look to see who's on it. Also, make sure that they're on it, because they've done reviews for us. And it's a way to make it visible, because you can't have public knowledge of peer review. You can't say, okay, I did a peer review for that paper, because it's all confidential. So therefore, it's the only way we can actually publicise referees' activities. What you can also consider doing, which is not actually publishing, but you as senior scientists can consider helping people, helping authors, helping them write. Some of you were at the meeting this morning, seeing how can you explain to them, how can you help them see, is their English good enough? Is their logic clear enough for English second language? How can you make their papers better? Because that also helps you, because you're sharing your knowledge. And as you are explaining this to them, you're also better formulating it in your mind, so it also helps you when you write. So consider a one-on-one author clinic, or even just a group of people doing it. And of course, it feels good, because you're helping people, and it really is a useful thing to do. Moving on. That's got any questions so far in terms of Springboard, how you can profile yourself. The next step will be what a publisher does and what we're not doing yet and you will ask us to do. What you might not know. We actually try and get submissions to journals, either by marketing or by other things, or by going to conferences, all sorts of things we're doing. We manage the peer review process using EES of the similar system. Other publishing houses do the same thing. You've got publishers and publishing houses. Publishing house is what you would call a publisher. It means it's a place that publishers are. So I'm a publisher, I look after 18 journals. There are about 200 of us in Elsevier. 180. I lost count. Because we have 2,000 odd journals. Nothing's flashing now, it's full of them. So here we have, we as a publishing house edit and prepare the papers that are accepted. They go through from the publishing process, they're prepared, they then get published, disseminated online. That means that literally it's out there forever. It's on Science Direct, it's archived, and so the idea is it's always there after you've retired. We also develop innovations to help authors, both apps. We have, for example, a protein visualizer. We have coming up, just been launched, interactive plots, whereby you actually put a whole list of the data points, and then it'll do either the table or it will do a plot on the right-hand side of your article in Science Direct. And as you hover over it with a mouse, a reader can see what the data points are. In the past, you had to print this out using a ruler to work this out. And now it's very, very useful, particularly as scientists sometimes are very creative with their sidebars. They don't start at the right point. So you do need to see the data points. And so that is a good, useful tool that we thought of value. That was suggested to us by one of our editors. And so actually we're always listening for different sorts of innovations. And I say, we archive journal articles forever. Forever? Well, what's forever? As long as we can. As long as there's society, you can imagine. What happens if Elsevier goes bankrupt, goes bust? We've only been around 130 years. Well, we have a deal with 2 national libraries, the Netherlands and in the UK. We say, here is Science Direct, for free. In exchange, if Elsevier ever stops, you've got to maintain all the content with future publishing platforms. Just an example, Windows 6, 7, 8, 9, 150, whatever. You've got to do that in exchange for getting it free. And of course, the National Library in the Netherlands says, done. Thank you, yes. And that's what we do. We're committed to making sure the archiving is there. We promote, we market, we tell people out there, we provide usage data for authors to share with other people. And also we go to conferences and we award Young Investigator Awards, Best Poster Awards and so on, as a way also just to give something back to the community. So we also do our bit. Recognise most publishers are commercial companies. Some aren't. Some are charities, some are societies. For example, ACS is a society, so they generate money for the society. Some are a charity, and they put the money back into the university. We're a public company, we have shares, we have shareholders. Most of our shareholders are pension funds, so they want to have some money for their pensioners. Reasonable. We have some universities who actually have shares with us. So therefore it's a very interesting full circle. So therefore we do accept that we have to get the best value possible whilst charging money for it. And that's an awkward balance that all scientists who are business people, us, have to try and walk that pathway. It's not always easy, but we do our best. What else do we do? We actually do all sorts of interesting analysis. It's the metrics. What's being downloaded? What's being cited? What keywords are there? Where are they coming from? Which institutes? Which countries? That helps us sometimes see, okay, that's great, that journal's doing wonderfully. Sometimes it's that journal's not doing so well, what should we do about it? Should we change it somehow? Should we launch a new journal? Sometimes we do. Sometimes we see a citation pattern. People are citing these keywords. people are publishing in these keywords, and there's a gap. Okay, these 3% more articles per year, or in life sciences 4.5% per year. There's actually not enough journals in this field. There are in there and there. So let's launch a journal there. And so we typically are launching 20 or 30 journals a year extra. Now that sounds a lot. If you've got 2,000, it's not that many. 20 and 2,000 is fine. We of course do the plagiarism control. We deal with the cross-check consortium, cross-reference, which is also part of that. It's all part of this support for the industry. And because plagiarism is the disease of our time, you as a reader want to make sure what you're reading is novel, not being copied by someone else. And that's our job to make sure that happens. And that is a challenge. And we rely on you guys to say, this is wrong. And if someone says this is a problem, we go look. We do use the Authenticate program, but also we rely on scientists out there just to say, excuse me, this is wrong. Please check. And we do. And it takes a tremendous amount of time, all these ethical cases, and there's no financial benefit to the company, but we do it because we believe the record of science has to be as accurate as it can be in the future, moving forward. That's our commitment to this field. Of course, we also get involved with the recruitment and training of journal editors. Journal editors are involved in the new launch of a journal, or a journal might be expanding in inflow and has to have more editors to cope. For example, last week in San Antonio, we just had a meeting with 2 more new editors, so because the inflow has gone up so much. So we have to make sure that they don't drown in work, so we add more editors. We've got to pick as editors we care. That's my job. My job is to pick new editors for a journal and to know when the old one should go. What is the point that person is actually stopped researching, or retired, or sick? At what point? Sometimes they want to go themselves, sometimes they're sort of, it's time to go. It's time to pass the baton. And that's so my most explicit, awkward, difficult job is getting rid of my friends. Because I like these people. I spent time with them, I've emailed them for years. At a certain point I think, okay, come on Jack, it's time to go. It isn't a job for life. It's time to find someone who should take over. Who do you think we should do? Have a discussion. Who should be your successor? Who do you want to take over your baby? Because that's what it is. You care for the journal. That's the difficult. That's my dilemma. What's best for the journal? What's best for the editor? And sometimes they're different. Once you've got the editor, then you've got to somehow train them, expose them to all. You've got so many reports we can drown editor with, so we don't. You say, look at these, there's lots more if you want things, otherwise you just drown. Because apart from training the editor, they're also getting all the papers, which is their second job apart from being a researcher. Of course, we support societies and associations. We pay to go to the meetings, we go to booths, we say, here's €10,000 to stand at a table because the society uses the money. And that's our job as a publishing house. And of course, we do things like training materials, webinars, these sorts of courses, just to help people get better at what they're doing. Because we regard it as a win-win. The more skilled you guys are, the better you can produce better papers, or be a better editor, a better reviewer, and we benefit too. So that's what our purpose is. If I can't find a win-win-win, I'm doing a bad job, I'm looking in the wrong place. That's my criteria for myself. I'm thinking, okay, what does the author want? What does the reader want? What does the editor want? What does Elsevier want? How can I make all that work? And that's my weird, internal sort of mindset coming to try and fix that. Big publishing house. I showed this earlier, but I only showed 2 bits. I showed this bit and this bit. But what we do is say we get in the submissions, we manage a peer review. 1 million review reports a year. This is major here. We edit and prepare, we have all these ways, board members, we email everyone, we do production, little back issues in there, back to issue 1, volume 1. We publish it, all these institutes worldwide, millions of downloads, whole archiving of everything. And of course we also have the editorial boards and journals, and this goes around and around and around. And we're actually having 1,000 new editors a year. That's the renewals we're having across the various journals. There's a lot of activities, and it's interesting because they all have different sort of dynamics and different balances. And sometimes we get it right, and sometimes we don't get it right, because we're human. Launching journals, as I said. 3% more scientists a year. In life sciences, 4.5%. Some fields, they splinter. Think of biochemistry. Suddenly became biochemistry and molecular biology. Why? Because that new method came new. It's now 55 years old, but it's still new for most people. And then even departments at universities changed their name to Department of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology. Then you have the area of enzymology became proteomics, metabolomics, omics. Again, it's there. It's just a little splinter, but that needs to be supported by a journal. Here's an example of a new journal, Open Access, Redox Biology. I launched that in January this year. It's mine. It's a sister to a free radical journal, and that is quite successful. It's already, in its first year, had 85, 90 papers published, which is pretty impressive in the first year. Considering there's no impact factor, it's not in PubMed, so it's doing pretty good. This is evolution. This, you can't read that, it's yellow or green, awful cover. Those of you who are senior might remember it. It's called the Journal of Biochemical and Biophysical Methods. Everyone loved to read it. No one liked to send articles to it. A very high subscription rate from people, a very high readership, and it was a struggle to get in authors. It really was. And so we looked at what was the strength of that journal. And we saw over time, most of the fields were going, one area was staying, that was the proteomics. Because that was the new area within methodology in biochemistry. And so we renamed it to the Journal of Proteomics. And then a relaunch 6 years ago, was it? 7 years ago? Wow, amazing. And that relaunch was very successful and very useful. It lost its impact factor for the first 2 years, that's life. It kept its PubMed coverage, as we argued, a change of scope and title to reflect the info. That's fine. And so that's the sort of thing we sometimes do. We do evolve a journal into something else. BBA has many sections, and those sections will change title over time to reflect. BBA proteins became BBA proteins and proteomics, for example, 7 years, 8 years ago. So these things are our job to somehow match the journal with the field. You guys are pushing the field, we're behind you watching what you're doing. Oh, shucks, they've gone that way. Quick, let's rename the journal, let's launch a journal. And that's what we do. We're not trying to control the field, we're trying to keep up. Editors, publishers, strange. Symbiosis. Normally not much friction. Sometimes you can be short with each other, but in general, the side of the editor, the essential managing query. Internally, Elsevier has, I think, about 15 editors on staff. Things like Lancet, Cell Press, Cell Journals. Those are our full-time editors. The rest are all scientists out there in the community doing their thing. We support them. And we do everything else. We do all the back office things, all the things that grease the wheels so it runs smoothly. It's the publisher and colleagues. Publishing house, the difference, that's where we all work for, does everything else, the marketing, subscriptions, typesetting, online content, everything else. So together, I say, works very well because we listen to the editors, we listen to the community, and they listen to us, and that works, I think, is a nice way. But we still don't listen enough. We don't have enough interactions with people. We listen carefully at conferences. We listen when people complain, we listen when people have good ideas, but there's never enough interaction, sadly. So I want to ask you, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What are we not doing yet that you are desperate that publishers should do? Because we don't know. We ask thousands of people, we get interesting answers, we should ask thousands more. And here we have 30 people, so I'm asking you, what should we do? Questions? Ideas? Thoughts? Please. Let me know what you think we should be doing. What are we doing right, what are we doing wrong? So this is your opportunity to have an input into a publishing house so that the publisher goes away and thinks, wow, that's neat. Let's see what we can do about that. So, come on guys, say something. Thank you. Yes?
A question about what do you think about the journal retracted by Food and Chemical Toxicology, an Elsevier journal? You know, about the genetically modified maize.
Oh,
what
yes.
happened?
Yes, I know.
And why this thing happened?
When it happened? It happened because it was rejected by a journal, a biotech journal, because it was scientifically frail. Then it was sent to a food journal and got accepted. This, if you don't know, it was interesting. There was actually a scientific paper showing that GM organisms kill mice. Unfortunately, they used the sort of mouse that dies anyway, the wrong strain, which wasn't spotted by the referees. And they also do not have GMO-free chow for the mice because it doesn't exist. All chow for the standard laboratory food for laboratory animals has GM content. So there's no, so that we couldn't separate the two sorts of food because it couldn't be done, number one. Number two, they used the wrong mice. So from that point of view, the paper was flawed totally. It was supported by one interesting editor who has gone on television saying that GM is evil and the people that should burn in hell, which is not particularly scientifically neutral. And that person arranged a peer review of this paper and went fast-tracked through. And when it got published, then it was a long process to see, well, how can we remedy this interesting process? And there's lots of complaints, and we were told we were unscientific publishing this paper because the mouse were flawed. It's a wrong mouse model, the wrong strain. Because if the mouse is going to die anyway in that very short time, don't the mouse die? Of course they die, they're supposed to die that time. So that's the difficulty, that if you are going to do real controls against GM, have a good experiment, do good controls, and just do it absolutely flawlessly. Do not muddy the waters and then use the journal as your useful ally in your fight against GMOs. That's basically where I'm going. Does that help? It's a very interesting background because it was my journal, I had biotech for a while, it was my journal who rejected it, then I went to my colleague's journal who accepted it because it went to this crazy editor who was, well, should we say, not as neutral as he could have been. So, I'll get off my platform now. This is my soapbox. Yeah. Yeah?
I have a question. I am the editor of the journal. I also usually act as a reviewer of different journals. And as editor, I noticed that it's sometimes very difficult to find where you and as a reviewer, if I do it well and I do it on time, I keep on receiving more revisions to make.
You are punished.
So I would like to know your opinion about
that's a very good challenge. Some cultures don't want to be referees. The Japanese don't feel that English is good enough. The Chinese say, what's in it for me? Nothing. Therefore I won't do it. They'll actually send in 50% of the inflow comes from China, but you won't get Chinese referees. That puts the strain on Western Europe and North America. Firstly, that's wrong. That's the case. It will change. The Japanese are getting a bit happier. We now say that the Japanese referee, check the science out. If you're not sure about the English, we'll let someone else do that. Then at least you get them into the idea of being referee. The Chinese have just been told 6 months back by the Academy of Sciences that they should be referees. It's good for their career. So they all say, me, I'll be a referee, but they're not very good yet. If you are an editor and someone asks to be a referee, normally they use as a third referee, and the first two referees are seen as the real ones, and then you compare what that person said. If it's the same or similar, then they actually have some value and they might be added to the database. If what they say is ridiculous compared to those two, you might not want to use them again. That's a nice way of checking out a referee. There needs to be more referee workshops, and we try to do more of these. We're just launching intensive ones. We just did one in Amsterdam for radiologists. It was actually a full half a day on here's the paper, here's the referee's comments, here's the revision, here's the non-referee's comments, and here's how it works. There's also a short referee workshop, 1 hour, which you can get. So, as an editor, you used to ask 4 people to get 2. Now you've got to ask 6 to 8 to get 2. And that's happening. Editors are busy. Referees are even busier. Referees working for multiple journals. It's sometimes some journals are very specific. I actually in one journal, my comparative biochemistry journal, it says, if we ask you to be referee, we will only ask you twice in a year. You know how good you are, because it's not fair to you. They say that in the letter. And sometimes they say, we know we said 2, but please can you do a third one? Whereas some journals will say, okay, you got it back in those 2 weeks, you're a key referee, okay, here's 3 more, or 10 more, or whatever. And so you can end up doing 30 papers, 40 papers. And that's not your job. It's a nice extra support for your field. You're right, it shouldn't be your whole job. What do? I'm referee. No, you run a department, you do research, you run proposals, you teach students, you write papers, you're an editor, and you review. It's a question of the balance. It is difficult, I agree. It needs to be better. It needs to be that universities value reviewers. If the university said, how many papers have you reviewed this year? And you put down a number, that at least has a value in it. It's not being done currently. That should be done, I think. Because in some fields, in medicine, reviewing a paper is 2 hours of CME, continuous medical education. So it's accepted that it's equivalent of 2 hours of CME to review a paper. That's the only area it's being done in medicine, the rest is not. It should be. And that will also help you get keener reviewers. If they know the university will know they've done it and value it, you might get more people saying yes. Maybe not. I don't know. It's worth a try. But we thought about giving sort of air miles points to referees to sort of paying them. It doesn't work because some referees will just give a review, accept as is. That's useless. You don't know what they mean. Or junk, exclamation mark. How can you share that with an author? You've got to have a reasonable review. And those referees with the short comments, you make a comment that yes, don't use. And you don't use them anymore. And so, it's a judgment call. What do you do if you get someone who says, accept as is, reject? You've got to do a tiebreaker, either 2 more people or 1 more person. Many editors use the board member then. They'll say, dear board member, we've had 2 conflicting reports. Please, can you give a quick report to help me make my mind up? And that's what the board is essential to come and do a quick review for you. Some journals use board members for reviews, some don't. One of my journals never uses board members. They always use the last 2 people they can find, the latest people they can find in PubMed, saying, your paper, the references, has been cited in this paper, do you want to review it? That's a good hook. Why are they citing my paper? Shall I read the article? Yes, I'll review it. Others use the board, only the board. And that's fine if they don't get many papers. Say a board of 25 people and they get 100 papers a year, that's fine. What happens if you've got a journal that has 1,000 papers a year? You can't do that for the board, they'll quit. It might be so. So it is a balance. And editors are very aware that they mustn't wear out or need too much. But they still need them. So it's a constant challenge. The editor's job is, what are the best people in the world I can ask without overburdening them? And that's yeah, it is. It's difficult. But interesting. Constant challenge. When you have the 6 people, you think, yeah, there's people busy, away, run proposal, got 6 already, you've got to find 4 more. It's yeah.
But you have to consider the timeline to have a good review for Zooming. When you use Zooming, finish the veterans. What is the time?
How long do you allow people?
Yeah.
Some journals are very generous. They say 4 weeks. Some say 2 weeks. Some journals will say, you've got 3 weeks. 3 weeks to give back your comments to the editor. And then 2 days beforehand, they send you an email. Hey, time's almost up. And then 4 days later, time's just up, just over. Where is it? Think of the author. Put yourself in the shoes of the author. They're waiting for your comments. I, as editor, want your comments. And then we get a situation where one reviewer comes back with a nice bunch of comments, the other person, silence. But then the editor goes out and says, excuse me, referee number 2, we've got the first one in waiting for you. I want your comments. I asked you because I value your comments. Please give them to me. And then normally that prod is enough. If not, they sometimes get uninvited. And that's very annoying. And then sometimes the editor ends up being the second referee, using the comments of the first referee and their own ones, or they ask a board member. But that, yes, that's the worst we can have. A referee says yes and doesn't do it. That holds up the whole process. It's terrible. It really is. And they make errors. Because the editor will say, "What was that guy again?" And we even have board members. We evaluate the board members. How many times have they asked? How many times do they reject? Or how many times do they decline? How many times do they time out? It's one thing to decline, another thing to accept and then time out. Those people do not stay on board. They get rotated off. Sorry, nice try, bye. So yeah, you've got to earn your place on the board, but you've also got to earn your place to stay on the board. Every year, editors get together with the data we provide and say, here's the board members, here's their data, here's how fast they were, doesn't matter what they said, but here's how they were. That's the bit of metrics that we keep on referees to help editors. And here's the guys who aren't on the board yet and who are very active. You've asked a lot of people many times. Do you want some of those off or some of those on? Okay, let's work this out. And that's what happens annually when editors get together for a journal. Or sometimes it's done by email or by phone. But so we have those actually editorial board evaluation meetings. Have you learned anything about publishing? Yes. Yeah.
Publish is very important, and it's so important that many people pay for an authorship in a paper. In China recently was uncovered that several journals from Thomson Reuters and one of Elsevier have been done that. What do you think about that and how this can affect editorials?
You're right. There is the field is less honest and less ethical than it was 30 or 40 years ago, for sure. The stakes are higher. In the past, you didn't get much money being a researcher. Now you can make a reasonable living being a researcher, and sometimes a very good living being a researcher, particularly in the US. So that sometimes leads people to cheat. And you take it, supposing you were in China trying to get your degree, you paid all that work, money, and that time doing your research at university. Before you can get your degree in China, you've got to publish 3 papers in a foreign language, English. The total impact factor of those 3 has to be 10.0. If you do not do that, you do not get a degree. So some people are tempted to cheat and to pay to be added to a paper just because the Chinese Academy of Sciences says, here's the rules. They changed the rules. The rules used to be different, but now suddenly, here's 3 papers in English, 10-point impact factor. Now, if you happen to be in the west of China, where you're taught in Chinese, that's tough. If you're in the east of China, you're taught in Chinese and English, it's a bit easier. But still, considering your career is at stake, you might consider cheating. You meaning, if there's 10,000 scientists, 20 might consider cheating. The rest are good, these people aren't. But that's it, they pay to publish, and that's wrong. It happens. The Elsevier journal wasn't ours, actually. It was a journal that we'd be posting a publication of. It was a society journal which just pays us to put it on Science Direct. We still got flack for it. But no, but that, I agree with you. We as a community have to be very aware that the ethical standards are not as good as they used to be, and we have to guard that. And also, it doesn't matter if it takes a while. There's actually whole groups doing retraction watch. And some of the retractions we do are 10 years ago, old papers. It doesn't mean to say that we're going to stop because it's more than 2 years ago. We actually will go, if we look at it and find something wrong, we'll take it away. Because that, to us, is correcting the record of science for the future, which is very time-consuming, very essential. And yes, there are things going on. And the more the public know about this, the better. The more the publishers and the editors and the referees talk to each other, the better. And it shouldn't be hidden. It has to be worked out. How can we best solve these few people who are making it bad for the rest of us? That's what it is, I think. As I'm saying, it actually is 0.1% of papers have plagiarism problems, often through stupidity. They didn't know they were doing it. But about half of those that are plagiarizing do it purposely, trying to just beat the rules. And it's a gamble, but the gamble is no one will find out. Often they do. No one will find out, and therefore I can then move on in my career. What's happening in China, if they spot that you have a paper that was unethical and gets taken away, they ask for some money back. Because in China, if you publish a paper after you graduated in a regular journal, typical impact factor journal, you get a month's salary extra, free. Publish it in Cell, Nature or Science, 1 year's salary extra, free. Now, if that paper turns out to be, not only do you get a rap on the hand, the government asks for the money back. And that made headlines in Chinese newspapers, because that hits them in their wallet. And so therefore, that is such a far better incentive than just saying, naughty scientist. Naughty scientist and pay us back the money. Actually, it's much more effective. And so there's been some high-profile cases in China of people having to pay back the money and then being tossed out of science, told you can no longer be a scientist. So it's hardening attitudes. And I'm hoping in the coming years that hardening attitude by the Chinese Academy of Sciences actually spreads through the system, because there's a lot of people in other places also doing things wrong. The ethical things, we have people do strangely. I had someone say to me about 2 years ago, this institute here doesn't have the equipment. How can they publish a paper on this topic? Don't know, I'll ask. Oh, no, we used the equipment of the neighbouring institute down the road. They lent it to us. Oh, okay. The editor didn't believe that. Okay, I want to see your lab notes. And the person wrote back and said, there's nothing in the guide to authors to say we should keep our lab notes, they're destroyed. So the editor thought, I'm going to withdraw the paper and I'm going to report you to the ethics committee of your university. That's all they can do. And you'll blacklist you. Report you to the ethics committee of the university. Back out the email, I regret your decision. In terms of reporting me to the ethics committee of the university, no problem, comma, he's my cousin, full stop. So some people, you have to wait till they retire. But the rest, you try. We try as best as we can to be as ethical as we can and to catch the people we can, but it is a group effort, very much so. And there are people who make a hobby out of trying to spot fraud. There's a fraud watch, there's the retraction watch, all these people are literally looking for things that are dubious and sharing it with the world in websites and blogs. That's great, it's wonderful, because we need those people, because we can't do it all, because we are trying to do the basic back office stuff. There we are, 2 o'clock.
Last week in Italy there was a news and views report about the close has become profitable in 2010. And well, the headline of the article presentation says some was on the chief executive officer that Block saying that the next years we will see a complete change in the review processing system. What do you think about that?
I have no idea. I know that PLOS used to be very fast.
Yeah.
And then they were a victim of their own success, and they got slower and slower and slower. The rejection rate has gone up slightly, and if they are going to make it better, good for them. They need to, because it's slowed down too much. If they're going to throw money at it, I'm not sure what they're going to do. How they're going to do this, I don't know. We'll see. I'll share another little horror story with you. There was actually, you might have seen it in Nature and Triggered. There was some researchers in Greece published a paper talking about some interesting proteins around obesity. Interesting. Published in BBRC. And that was great. Unfortunately, the person who was also researching this stuff in Harvard Medical School in Boston thought no one else is doing this. So where did they get this information? He looked up the authors, said, I can't find them. Then contacted us, and of course we looked. These authors don't exist in Greece, and that institute does exist. They do work on obesity, but they knew nothing about these names of people. The paper was a great paper, very interesting, containing data that this researcher in Harvard had actually shared at a Keystone meeting. It hasn't yet published. So, what's the benefit? The benefit was those Greek authors don't get benefits because they don't exist. The benefit was someone somewhere didn't like this guy and published a detailed paper with a great effort to make sure it was out there so he couldn't publish. Interesting. So sometimes people can be a bit cruel, and this person was talking about we should go to the FBI and all sorts of things because obviously this was fraud. Yeah, who are the people? We don't know. We drew the paper and they made a very interesting story in Nature about these fake or invisible Greek scientists. In fact, they were probably Americans from Harvard who made Gmail accounts, Hotmail accounts to just annoy this obesity researcher in Harvard. That's very unusual. So that's, you can never say, people are scientists and scientists are people. Thank you for your time. These slide sets will have